Welcome to ETL's second blog on Transformation Manager. This blog will cover identification manipulation. So let's begin. Okay, from the last blog that we saw, what we may remember is that we loaded a couple of models in. So we loaded some flat files in terms of a single input files model with 4 files within it: standards file, an aeroplane file, turbine blades file, and a nuts and bolts file. We also loaded in an Oracle database. So here's the metadata for that. We can see we have the origin table, engine table, aeroplane table, bolts table, turbine costs, and standards tables. So we can see we have those models in there. We also had the standard TM error model for allowing us to report our errors out to particular other outputs that we want to output the errors to. And at the top here you can see that we created our first project. We had the input files as a source, the Oracle Engine Extended database as a target, and we created a transform moving the aeroplane data to the aeroplane target. And where we got to was we ran it, transformed it into the target database, but what we'd seen was if we looked at the aeroplane data, we can see here that we have 2 Boeing 747s with different plane codes. And what we were looking at was, after we'd moved that data, we tested it, we viewed it in the target, and we thought, well, okay, that's fine with all the data's moved across, but what we didn't really want was for us to have the 2 Boeing 747s. So how can we manipulate the identification within TM to enable us to just get unique names moving across into the aeroplane database table? Well, looking at it as it stands now, we can see that the aeroplane database table has the orange dot indicating a primary key on the plane code. You can see also the green dots for the foreign keys on the OF key and the engine used. But for now, let's have a look. So plane code is our primary key. So as TM is migrating this data across, what it's doing, it's looking to see if the plane code already exists. If it does, then it will update it. If it does not, then it will create a new one. We can see here in the data from the source that we've got a plane code of 998 for our first Boeing 747 and a plane code of 999 for our second Boeing 747. So that means currently TM will actually write both rows into that target data store. So how do we manipulate the identification to ensure that we're getting unique names? Well, within TM, one way of doing it is to simply add a star before the name and a minus after the plane code. And what that's doing within TM is it's actually removing the identification against plane code. So it's saying don't identify against plane code, and adding a star against the name is telling it to identify against the name. And again, these can be composite, so it doesn't have to be just one column. In this case, it can be many columns, but for the sake of this example, we're just changing it over to name. So we're taking off the plane code and we're putting the identification on the name. So this could be the same as taking off a surrogate key and adding it to a natural composite key, something like that. So what we'll do, we'll just have a quick look at the help, and we can see here we have the asterisk operator for find and create and adding our identification in. You can see the minus to cancel out our identification. We also have a plus that allows us to do just update behavior, and we have an exclamation mark used for just find. So again, there's a number of different features that are available to us, and some of those features will come across later in the blogs. But for now, we're going to be happy with this. We're hoping to move across our data and just get the unique rows for the names that are being moved across. So again, we can right click, we can build. You can see we've got some extra warnings now. So we have our identification on the name as assigned from an optional attribute on the source from the flat file. We also have the warning against the mandatory value now for plane code being assigned from the optional plane code. And we also have a warning about primary keys, so we probably should have spent a little bit more time on our sample database putting in the correct keys for it. and certainly indexing things out, such as the name. But for now, we can accept this. And again, it's pretty much on a performance thing. So, if you don't have your database correctly defined, then it's just going to be a hit on your performance when you're migrating it, because if you have to do a full table scan, that's going to be a lot more intensive than actually just being able to define the record straight off. So now that we've built it, we can launch the migrator to run it, and we'll go through the migrator once more. So you can see we still have the information here from last time that we ran, and we still have our engine database. One thing I have done between the two blogs is I've cleared out the engine target so that we have a clean database to run the information into. Click run, we can see that's written it in. If we switch back to our designer, and again if I right click on the aeroplane on the target and select view data, we can now see that we only have one Boeing 747. And you can see the plane code it's used is a 999. So what's happened in reality there is that you can see it's picked each one up in turn. It's found the Concorde, the Boeing 747, Boeing 737 and Antonov 225. But what it'll have done is it picked up that first Boeing 747 with a plane code of 998, put that into the database. Then when it came across the second Boeing 747, it will know there was already one there. So the default behavior in this case was just to update. So it's taken the new plane code of 999, added that to the row, and the 200 and Y you can see are exactly the same. So that's how we've come to get our 4 unique names into our target aeroplane database. Well, I hope this blog has been useful and you've learned some new things about TM and what it can do. And we'll hope to see you in the next blog soon. Thanks very much and goodbye.